Yeah, hello, Steve.
I'm here. Good morning. I can see all of you.
Can you see me? Can you see me?
I can.
Yes, hello. So may I introduce you shortly to my audience?
Of course.
Yeah. In Estonian.
Of course.
Yeah. Ühesõnaga, meie järgmine ettekandja Steve Williams on samuti Newcastle ülikoolist, nagu täna esimene ettekandja, aga mitte Austraalia Newcastle ülikoolist, vaid Inglismaa Newcastle ülikoolist. Nii et ingliskeelses maailmas suur osa ülikoole nimetatakse Newcastle ülikoolideks, võib siit järeldada. Nüüd ta on praegu infosüsteemide ja teenuste osakonna juhataja selles ülikoolis ning huvitub probleemidest, kuidas IT muudab organisatsioone ja toetab inimeste loovuse arendamist. Steve, I know you are fluent in German, but,
yes.
But I suppose most of us prefer English.
So English is what I will speak. That's fine.
Please, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. And it's great to have the opportunity of speaking with you this morning, albeit only online. I hoped to come to Tallinn, but unfortunately I must be in London this afternoon. But it's good to have the opportunity of making the presentation. I understood a little bit of the introduction, and yes, I'm from Newcastle University in England, which is a different university from Newcastle University, Australia. But I know Liz and I've worked closely with her. Some of the things that I speak about will be similar to some of the themes that Liz was talking about earlier. What I'll be talking to you about this morning are the barriers and the enablers to technology-enhanced learning. I've done a piece of research with an academic at another university, and we've been talking about the things that make technology-enabled learning easier and the things that make it more difficult. Now, so that I can understand the audience, please, if you work in a school, put your hand up. That's about half. If you work in a university, put your hand up. Thank you. And if you work somewhere that is not a school and not a university, put your hand up. And that's a small number. Right, thank you. I hope that what I have to say is relevant for schools and for universities. So I'm the IT director at Newcastle University, but we work very closely with the teaching professors at the university, and I'll talk about that during my speech. I worked with my colleague at the University of Cumbria, another university in the north of England, and we worked on this project for about a year, and we've now published this work, and later in the presentation I'll give you a link to our publication. What I mean by technology-enhanced learning is any use of technology that supports a student, whether it's a fully online course like a MOOC, whether it is using Blackboard or Moodle to support teaching in classroom. I include all of that within technology-enhanced learning. The guiding thought for this presentation, the thing I want you to realise in 25 minutes' time, is that you understand what some of the issues are about using technology facilitating learning, and you want to go away from this conference with some ideas about what to do about it in your school or university. This chap, Dave Wolfendale, this man is my assistant director of IT for teaching and learning at my university. And he came up with a wonderful quotation, which is that every one of our students does tell. In many universities, people think of technology-enhanced learning as an add-on, as something different from regular teaching. We don't think about it that way. We think of the technology as a part of the learning experience. And this is the same idea that Liz was talking with you about earlier. If you change the room, if you change the teaching, if you change the technology, all of these things interact. They depend on each other. All of our students work with technology in different ways. This is my colleague Anne Tanaraj. who's the head of the law school at the University of Cumbria, and it is Anne and I who've done this research together. The reason that we work together is that I have the perspective of an IT person, and she has the perspective of a lawyer who is a professor, the head of a law school. And with our different perspectives, we hope that we can produce some interesting work. Anne's concern is that do we assume that the technology enhances learning without really understanding whether it does? Yes, we use technology, but is it really better? It's about the pedagogy, not the technology. What we should be talking about is using the technology to facilitate, to allow high quality learning, and we should be thinking about our students. I know yesterday that your pre-conference involved students talking about how they want to use technology. That's a wonderful perspective to use. In our university, members of my team work with staff and student committees in every subject so that we understand how teaching works in each subject. And we have members of my team working on that teaching. Another thing to bear in mind is that technology-enhanced learning is different in different disciplines. If you're using technology to help music, that will be different from medicine or mathematics. So this is the underpinning pedagogy, the thinking behind the project. So what was the project? Now, I apologise. There are quite a lot of words on some of these slides, but I'm going to talk about some of the ideas that the research came up with. You will get a copy of the presentation, so you'll be able, if you're interested, to refer back to the ideas. So don't worry about I won't be reading all of the words on the slides. So our work aims to break down the barriers between academics and TEL. Technology-enhanced learning is part of learning. And we also want to have the perspective on the institutional policy. What can Newcastle University, what can the University of Cumbria, what can Gustav Adolf Gymnasium in Tallinn, what can these different organisations, I saw somebody smile there, you must be from Gustav Adolf Gymnasium, what can you do in your organisation to support the use of technology in your learning? And we bring these different perspectives to the work, because Anne's an academic and I'm an IT person. How did we do the work? Well, we brought focus groups together, focus groups of academic leaders and academics, students and service providers. By service providers, I mean IT departments. We reviewed the literature that already exists on this. We know very well there are hundreds of papers about e-learning. We have a blog, and I'll give you the blog link a little later on. Please do participate in that blog. And we wanted to present our conclusions, where we compare and contrast the two different universities and see whether there's any recommendations in that. And I'm going to spend the rest of the presentation, about 15 minutes, going through the similarities and the differences that we found in our research between our universities and talking about the recommendations for other universities and schools that you might want to do to make technology-enhanced learning as effective as it can be. So what about the similarities between our universities? Well, at both Newcastle and Cumbria, we came up with these barriers to e-learning that were similar. The digital literacy and fluency of our staff is a big issue. Many of our staff are very comfortable using technology, some are much less comfortable. I really like the difference between literacy and fluency. Quite difficult English this, but for me, digital literacy is how well do you use the software that you have? Can you use Blackboard effectively? Can you use Moodle effectively? And digital fluency is deciding which software to use. Are you better to use Blackboard, or should you set something up with a Twitter stream or a Facebook group? That's a barrier. Both of our universities found that. The next one I want to talk about is what's in it for me. Some of our academic staff are very interested in research and they're less interested in teaching. If you're less interested in teaching, you probably aren't very interested at all in using technology to make your teaching more effective. So how do we recognise in the careers of our teachers that using technology is good for their career? Many of our staff say, listen, I already work 60 hours per week teaching now. Really, I don't have time to do anything else new. That's a serious issue across many of our teachers. What about communication across the university? I didn't know there was software that would let me do that. You use that, but I didn't know about it. So communication can be a barrier across our universities. What about the student experience? Some students think, well, I want to be there with the lecturer. I don't want online learning. I want to be able to talk to people. That is a barrier for some of our people. And two other ones to pick up there. Fear and reticence on the part of staff. Well, it's new technology and I'm very confident doing it this way, but I don't want to do it that way. And support with the tools. Even if we have very good software, sometimes people will have questions about that software. Can they get those questions answered? So those are some of the barriers that the research found in both of our universities. What about the enablers? What about the things that will make our students smile instead of looking upset? So things that will make our students smile, if we can design our technology to support a good student experience, that will please our students. If we make our students feel that they belong to part of the community, Liz was talking about this before, learning from your peers, learning with your peers. That's how we work as adults, we learn from our colleagues. So if we can make help our students to learn that way as well, in a way that's personalised to them, that makes good sense. If we can support their creativity, if we can use technology that enables them to be creative, that's useful. And if we can use technology that allows everybody to access our material. We have many students who have Asperger syndrome. This is a form of autism, which means that people take things very literally. Well, if we have ways that people can learn that support how they wish to learn, then people whose first language isn't English, or who have Asperger syndrome, or who are blind, they will find it easier to learn because we have a range of technologies to support that learning. So those are the things which our research found was the same between our universities. What similarities are there in the support that our universities can give? Well, each university and each school will have a teaching and learning strategy. All of your schools and universities will have a document of some sort which is called Teaching and Learning Strategy. Technology enhanced learning should be part of that. There are two ways you can do this. One way is to have a separate technology enhanced learning strategy, and another one is to have a section within your learning strategy to deal with technology. Either of those two ways can work. In your staff workload model, when you are working out how much work your teachers must do, plan your technology involvement in that. And make the pedagogy fit the subject discipline. If something works well for maths, don't assume that that will work well for music. And finally, and I as the IT director must say this, you have to invest in software. You also have to invest in people and in training. Putting in good technology does not cost £0. Many of my university colleagues assume that I can do magic to put technology in, but no, it needs good project management. Now, what barriers did we find? Cumbria University came up with a series of barriers that Newcastle didn't come up with. Many students have multiple online personalities. They want to be Steve Williams when they're studying, but they want to be, I don't know, Superman when they're doing their sport or whatever they want to be, or games hero when they're doing computer games. That's quite difficult to incorporate that within teaching. What about the design of study spaces? Liz talked a lot about this earlier on. If you have study spaces that do not support the pedagogy that you want, change your study spaces. Excuse me. You have staff who aren't interested, who want to do different things. And perhaps if you do not support your staff in using the tools, that could be a problem. Cumbria talked about student support with the software. In Newcastle, they talked about staff support with the software. You give us all this software, and then you expect us just to use it without any training. Difficult. Newcastle people also talked about copyright and intellectual property. If my lectures are being recorded, I might get into copyright problems. Well, yes, you might, but you shouldn't be using copyright material in your teaching anyway. Looking now at the enablers that we found that were different, people in Cumbria said that they thought that they gained better communication skills using online. Well, that's an interesting point. We didn't find that in Newcastle. We found a series of other differences in the enablers. Retention of students. We thought that by using innovative teaching, we would be able to retain students in the university. We also thought it provided more opportunities for international collaboration. Newcastle University has a medical school in Malaysia. We teach engineering programs in Singapore. By using technology effectively, we can combine the best of the teaching around the world and allow all of our students to benefit from it. So engineers in Britain can watch lectures delivered in Singapore, and medical students in Malaysia can watch lectures delivered in Newcastle. We think our students who are more fluent with technology will find it easier to get jobs. Their employability will be better. And we also found that recognising staff's work on TEL was an enabler that we could put in place. Finally, the software needs to work. It needs to be scalable, and it needs to be reliable and innovative. Now, that's tricky. For anybody who works in IT, you will know you can make software innovative, you can make it reliable, but making it innovative and reliable is quite tricky. Finally, there are differences in institutional support. Cumbria made the point that we need to manage the hardware and software well. Don't change too much at once. Don't put version 10 of the software in, train everybody on version 10, and then 1 month later, put version 11 of the software in, which looks different. Also, use meaningful names for TEL projects. In Newcastle, we call our lecture capture project Recap. Recap is a good word because it tells you what you can do. You can recap your lecture. You can go and look at it again. So have a meaningful name for TEL projects. Newcastle also talked about having a digital literacy plan for their staff and sharing best practice. Help our people to become fluent at using the technology. Another one that's important there is hybrid managers. I want people in my organisation, I will explain what a hybrid manager is. I want people in my organisation to understand pedagogy and to understand technology. I don't care whether those people work in a teaching job or in an IT job. I want them to understand both. And finally, empower staff. Allow staff to teach in different ways. If I'm a lecturer in engineering, I know how to teach engineering, so trust me to do that and give me the tools that I need. Now, I've talked about the enablers, I've talked about the barriers, I've talked about the similarities and differences in our organisations. So what does our research recommend? Well, we have 6 recommendations from the research, and I'll go through each of these quickly. Think about the needs of your learners, think about what motivates your academics, and use those things to drive the adoption of TEL. Make it quick, allow your lecturers to choose tools that work, don't force them to use software that isn't very good. You need to have both policies and scope for innovation. You don't want 1,000 people doing 1,000 different things, and you don't want to force everybody to work in the same way. You must value both the fact that academics know their subject, and you must value technical support of TEL. You should have an academic lead for each TEL initiative. Nobody really will listen to the IT people. Well, they listen to the IT people sometimes, but they listen to the professors much more. So every one of our TEL projects has a professor as its lead. And finally, improve digital literacy across the university. If you do 4 or 5 of those 6 things in your organisation, I believe that TEL will become more effective in a school or in a university. This is the last slide. If you want to find out more, there's the blog link. And if you want to read the short paper that publishes this research in a little more detail, if you Google JLDHE, the Journal for Learning Development in Higher Education, the paper is published there. That was all I wanted to say. I think I've got time for a couple of questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Steve, I was told that you are in a hurry to catch a train. Is it true?
That is true, but I've got time for a couple of questions.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, 2 very short questions, please. So all our people are discouraged.
No, there's one person with the hand up at the back. And besides, it is lunchtime, I know, so perhaps 2 short questions is good.
Anna Williams.
From University of Tartu.
Okay.
What other universities in England have learned from your experience? Are they following? Are they doing same kind of projects?
Yes. Okay, that's an excellent question, thank you. I've presented this material a couple of weeks ago to the British University Society, to the Society of University IT. So I've presented to 30 or 40 different organisations. Most British universities are thinking in the same sort of way. They're recognising technology-enhanced learning as a teaching skill. They're rewarding it in their teachers. And they're thinking about making the technology both flexible and reliable. So these are not radical ideas. They're ideas that many organisations are thinking of. We hope that we put them in quite a clear way so that people can implement them.
Yeah, thank you. Kas on veel küsimusi? Üks küsimus. So it seems that there are no any more questions, not any more questions.
Okay, if anybody would like to ask any questions after the session, do please email me. It's steve.williams@newcastle.ac.uk.
And to close up the session, I would just show you the present we give to the presenters.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, you just should be satisfied with graphical image, but I assure that as soon we will get teleportation technology, you will get this present physically.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you very much.
I've heard of telepresence, but teleportation would be exceptional. Please enjoy the rest of your conference, and thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much.